So whatever the topics we discussed yesterday, is it clear? Like what is the variables and what is mean by an identifier, and what is the rules for declaration of a variable? These all are clear, right? Is anybody have any doubts in this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, cool. So now let's jump on to our next today's topic. It is scopes. So did you people check what is mean by scopes and how many types of scopes are available?
Yes, sir.
So can anybody name what are the types of scopes we have and what is mean by scopes?
3 types, sir.
So what are the three types?
Global scope,
Okay,
functional scope,
okay,
local scope.
okay.
Block scope, sir.
Okay, cool. So that's good. So let's not waste our time. So let's jump into scopes topic. So here scopes are totally, we have of four types that we'll be discussing today. So among them, first one will be the, as you already know, global scope. Okay, so global scope. Next one is the block level scope. And third one is the global scope. Sorry, second one is the local scope. Third one is block level scope. And fourth one is the lexical scope, we call it as lexical scope. Okay. So these are the four types of scopes that we'll get in the JavaScript. Okay. So whenever you declare any variable, that means nothing but any identifier. So that identifier can falls under any one of these scopes category. So now if you just jump into the first category, which is nothing but global scope, right? So what is mean by this global scope is nothing but, before going to the global scope, what is mean by scope is the accessibility of variables, functions, and objects in some particular part of your coding during runtime. That means, for example, I have declared some function or I have declared some variable and objects. Okay, so somewhere in my page here, if you see, I declared a constant here, I declared a let variable here and a variable here. So I have declared like this, and once I declare it, I will be executing this code at a particular time, a particular runtime of my file. For example, as I said yesterday, if it is a asynchronously it is goes, what happens? It will come by one line. But for example, if I make it asynchronous, that means by using any set time or such functions, what happens? I may stop these two lines execution for 2-3 seconds or how much time I need. So what happens? Then I'll execute this line before executing this. So these type of things also can be possible by using the JavaScript, right? So by default, JavaScript is a synchronous, but we can even make it as a asynchronous thing. So basically scope is nothing but it's just a accessibility of variables or functions and objects of your code during the runtime. So why we need these scopes? So first of all, so scoping of part of code helps to improve the efficiency to track bugs and reduce them basically. So it can improve the efficiency of your code, and also it will be very easy for you to track the bugs and also to reduce that particular bugs so that the code can be handled in a soft manner. For that purpose only, we need this scoping. Also, scope also resolves the naming problems when you have variables with same name but in different scope. For example, as I mentioned, block level, local, like lexical scopes, or even though if you declare here, if you say yesterday we check, declaring with the same name for all the type of scopes, it is not worked, right? It throws as a error. But by using this scoping method, we can even declare the same name of variable with multiple times, because maybe here we are using some different scope types here. Maybe it's a lexical scope or local scope or general scope, that way. So maybe it is not possible to declare the same variable with all the type of scopes, but it can be possible with few things. So that you can see now in the coming example. So now let's quickly jump into the first type of scope. Give me a minute. Which is nothing. What is the first type of scope that we are going to discuss here now? So can anybody tell me what is this thing here? Semicolon here. What it does? I'm asking you people, if you know, tell yes, or else just say at least no. Don't be calm. I'm asking you people, right? Am I speaking with anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. So this exclamatory mark, yesterday when I was mentioning the rules of a variable, so identifier, operator, and value, and this is the terminator, we call it as. For example, JavaScript by default, it will terminate the line by line, it will execute. But for example, as I mentioned yesterday, if you didn't give a proper terminator like this, what happens? It will think that sometimes the code is still continuing. Until unless you give a particular terminator, the browser while executing will think like it will be continuing for the next line also. Got it? So to avoid these type of issues and declaration errors, so that is why it is very, very important and mandatory to maintain the terminators at a particular every place. So this is nothing but terminator. Yeah. Is it clear? Okay. So now let's jump into the global scope. The first one is the global scope. So global scope is nothing but a variable defined outside of a function. That means a variable that is declared now not within a function or within a block or any code. So that is freely declared in my JavaScript file. So global variables can be accessed and modified from any functions. For example, so let me take an example like I'll take let a variable, I'll take variable name is equal to, okay. So let me take this example. It is not recommendable to use the caps at the starting of your variable name. So I'll use Manoj Kumar. Okay. So Manoj Kumar is the variable that I have just created here. Got it? So now let me console the value. Okay. Console.log of. So for time being, I'll be putting this whole code commented. I don't want any of other codes to be overlapped. So I'll be commenting it. Global scope, and it will be name, right? So let me go back to the browser. Where is it? Okay. Okay. So I can't see my output on my screen because it will be in the developer tools. So here, if you see, I was getting global scope as what I got. Manoj Kumar. Manoj, did I got or not? Manoj Kumar, right? So Now, let me do one thing. The same thing, let me try to access the same variable within a function. For example, let me take a function like, so you don't need to worry about this function, how we are creating, because we are going to discuss about function types in the upcoming classes. So just think about how the output is getting created and what is the concept here. So the creation of functions will be I'll give a syntax, keyword of function and the function name with the parenthesis and the brackets. Clear? So this is how the function name will be function will be created. So within this, you can write off your code of lines of execution that you want to give under this particular function. Clear? So now let's come back and write what we need. So let me write console dot log of name. Okay. So as I written the function, I need to call it. Call is nothing but I was telling to run this function as soon as I come to this line. That's what this line indicates. I was just calling my function to get executed. So now if you get here and if I reload, if you see, am I getting here or not? I'm asking you people, am I getting the
Yes.
name or not? But
Yes, sir.
if you see here, did I declare my variable inside a function or outside the function?
Outside the function.
So that is what called as the global scope. So global scope is nothing but you will be not declaring within any functions or within any loops. You will be declaring outside. If you see, it is directly outside. Simply for your remembrance, you can remember a shortcut like child selector in the CSS. So what is a child selector will do? So whichever directly to the parent, right? Whichever direct to the parent, that all will be selected in the child selector. In the same way, whichever globally declared, not within any functions. So those scopes will be called as the global scopes. Clear? So if you see, I can access this variable name in any of the functions or any loops. I can use. Why? Because it is globally declared. It is not declared within any particular function. Is it clear? Guys, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So nobody have any doubts with the global selector, right? Anybody have any doubts with global scope?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool then. So now let's just jump into the next particular type, which is nothing but which one? Local. Okay. So now let's go back to the local scope example. Okay. So there are different scopes for every call of a function. Okay, this means that variable having same name can be used in different functions, each function having different scope and are not accessible to other function. That means simply to say, take an example of a person named Manoj Kumar. So totally I have two rooms. Okay, so in two rooms I have two different people with the name Manoj Kumar, right? So, for example, just imagine one person is registered for Python in one room and one person is registered for UI in one room. So, the names are same, but I was declaring them in a two different rooms, not in a single room. And there will be no relation between the first room Manoj to the second room Manoj. They can't even access each other, right? So, because they are completely in a two different place. So, for example, but if you just imagine they both are in the same room, okay? So then what I need to do, I can't call them both at a time. I can't call Manoj and Manoj at a time. Why? Because they don't know whom I was calling. So definitely what I need to do, I need to think some way. For example, Manoj Kumar, I can call one person. I can tell them I'll call you Manoj Kumar and other person I'll call you Manoj Chaudhary. So what happens here, even though their name, common name is same, I was just using an extra name to remember them, right? So in the same way here in JavaScript also, the scopes we can give the same name if they are in the different functions, not in the same function. So if the both the variables with the same name are in the same function, then what happens? It will create a error. But if they both are in different functions and the name is same, it's not going to create any issue. So if you just take an example of how this will work, so let me give. So here, not only variable, let me try with let also once and let's see the output. What is the output we'll get? Did we getting the same output or not? Even with the let, right? So let me try with constant now. So constant I used. See, did I got the same output or not? Right? So whenever you declare a global scope with any type of variable, in such cases, it can be accessible clearly. Okay, but there are few scenarios where my global scopes, if you these let and constant are by default block level scopes, right? But here it is globally accessible. Why? Because it is globally declared. So the declaration what matters every time. So the place where you are declaring that element and the function which in which the particular variable is declared. This all matters to make them whether it is a global or lexical or local or block level scope. Got it? So now let's come to example of local scope. So let me create a variable name L local scope, right? So I'll use L as the keyword is equal to Kumar I given. Okay. So next, I'll just go console it first. Log out local. Okay. And name L. So name L I was given. So let me check the output. What is the output here? So I was getting Kumar, right? So now let me create function here. Two different functions I'll create. Okay. So first function, I will give a function and then will be. I don't wanna waste my name time, so let me give name as function one only. So and I'll give like variable name L is equal to Manoj and let me give function one. Okay, so just let me do the same thing. Let me duplicate this and let me do function two and let me forward to call my function here. Function one. So it will be library. So let me give local function two. Okay. So if you see here, so I have declared the same variable here, right? So here also variable name L. So for your understanding, so if you see, I have declared the same variable name L here, and within the function again I created one, and within this function I created one. So let me call this function also. Function. Okay, sorry, that is function one. Okay, two. Okay. So now if you see here, I have two different functions, right? So one function I given variable name L as Manoj, another function variable name L as Chaudhary. So now if we check the output, so in both the functions, am I getting my name or not? And in the global scope also I'm getting that name. right? So F2, what I was getting? Okay, why? Because it was global declaration. We don't want any global declarations. So let me comment it out for time being. See where it is, where she is creating.
Sir, name of first letter N with capital one, sir.
Nice, thank you. It shouldn't be like that. That's why we should avoid the capitals at the first. If you see, so my variable name is same. Both are name L, but am I getting my output from two different functions or not? Got it? Now you understood how a local scope will work. The name is same, but there is no relation between these two rooms. Each room is individual. So I can declare with the same name in the both the rooms. Got it? So now let me make it. So let's try with let and constant for this one. So if you see let name L and let name L have taken in two different functions, right? So let reload. So is it affecting? So generally my let variable will not allow to redeclare, right? Is it correct or not?
Yes, sir.
But now if you see, it is allowing me to redeclare and reassign the value. Why? Because these are in a two different functions, not in a same function, or it is this particular variable is not globally available. So that is the reason why I was able to redeclare, because there is no relation between these two functions. Got it? That's how my particular local scope will work. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, so if you check with const also, it will do the same. Why? Because there is no relation between these two. The same output, but it will throw an error when if you try to redeclare in the same. For example, for a constant, I was trying to reassign the value, and here let me try let. So if you see, will it throw error or not? First one it was throwing identifier name and has already been declared. Where? Here. Which line? See, here it was telling name L is already been declared. Okay. Before it should throw error. Why? Because there is a other value here. We forgot to change. So it will throw error in other place, not in this place. So now my constant I declared with one value. Again, I was getting changed with one more value. Okay. Already been declared. Why it was always pushing to the second thing? Why it wasn't checking the first function? Okay. Now it was taken. Okay. So if you see, I can reassign the value within the function, but I can't even redeclare now also. Whatever we discussed yesterday, is it getting applied here or not? Redeclaration or reassign can't be done to the constant, and also redeclaration can't be done to the let variable. Is it clear? Yeah. So that's the difference between a global scope and a local scope. Yeah. So now let's get into the third type of scope, nothing but block level scope. Okay. So the block that what is in the block level scope is the identifier that can be accessible within a scope. That means, for example, even though if I have 10 rooms, okay, so I can be accessible only the people who are in my room, right? I'll be able to teach the people and the students who are there within my room. I don't have the privilege of teaching or accessing the other student rooms. Why? Because they are in a different room and there comes in a different training, and I will be teaching different and I was in a different room. So block level is nothing but accessing the scopes which are there within inside of it. Okay. So for example, if you take an example, Ravi, can you please put your mic on mute? Okay. So let me take an example how block level will work. So if, let me take an example, if condition here. So generally the block level scopes is used for if for while statements. Okay. So this also creates the same block level scope. Okay. So let me write a condition 20 percentage 10. What is the 20 percentage 10? Can anybody tell me what is the 20% 10?
Oh.
Basic mathematics. Okay. So I given one more condition called 20% 10 is equal to 10. Okay, I was checking a condition. If it is true, what I want to do. So I want to do like, let me declare here. Like result is equal to, it will be even number or odd number. Okay, even. So here I was using one of the other testing for nothing but alert. Okay, you should have already seen alert how it will work. Okay, so I was alerting result here. Okay, so alert result. Okay, the variable inside and it will be the variable outside. So if you see here, so I created a variable with let within my if condition right here, and I written a alert within my if condition, and I also return a alert outside of the if condition. Simply to say, I created a function within the room and also outside of the room, but I was trying to access the output of both inside also and outside also. Here I was accessing inside and here I was accessing outside. And now if we go to the browser and if I just reload and check, result is not defined. So what I was getting here, result is not defined. Are you able to see? Guys, are you able to see what is the issue here?
Yes, sir.
So when I was trying to access this particular variable named result outside of this particular code block, it was not allowing me to access it. Why? Because, so as I already mentioned you, this is there within a block of code. My variable is declared within a block of code and it was not declared anywhere outside. So that is the reason why I was not able to access it outside of the block. But coming to previous examples local, we declared here and we declared and accessing in the same place, same way within my function. But here my function is inside, I declared and I was accessing it outside. So that's why it was throwing me an error. Okay, for example, let me comment this out and let me reload now. Wasn't getting any error, but why I was getting output also? Just give me a minute. It wasn't working. So actually it was not going inside the function. What is the mistake we do?
If condition is false, so it's not going inside.
Sorry. I got mistake. Sorry. Yeah, cool. So now let's check. So condition, it is, let me try with other condition, not equal to. Okay, now is it true or not? If you see, I was getting my variable, but let me do. I was not getting this particular value result. Where is it? Result equal to even. Okay. So else okay. So not equal to, and why the fuck it wasn't taking my alert? So it came. Why it wasn't printing my value here? Okay, but the value is going inside of it, right? Okay, cool. So it's okay, no issue. So let me try with need of okay, so we getting value here. See, so I written two conditions. If it is equal to 10, 20% 10 is equal to 10, I will let this result and I'll go inside of it and I'll check it. But if it is not, else what I'll do, I'll go inside and I'll get this value. So when I remove it, just give me a minute. Okay, cool. Let me get back. So where we are, okay. So let me reload here. Okay. What happened? I don't know. I hope it is recording. Okay, cool. So when I was written within the if condition and I was accessing if, for example, not equal to, if I give, now you will see the output. See, I was able to access this particular variable, right? But now if I try to access the same result variable outside of my if condition, what it was telling, see, my first line of execution is done. It was giving your variable is even inside, but outside one result is not defined. So uncaught reference error. Why? Because I didn't declare result anywhere in the globally. So for example, let me try with variable here. So am I getting my output or not here? Why? Because as I clearly mentioned, you people, variable is a global scope. You can access it from within a function, outside function, anywhere you can access. That is the magic of using a global scope. But let and constant are the block level scopes. This is where the best example that you can consider to check. So when I was giving, one second. So when I was giving these variables let or constant within a function and accessing it, so it was not creating any issue. But when I was trying to access them out of my functions or if conditions, that is where the true nature comes into the picture. So that is why here, if you see, when I using a variable, I was able to access it within my function also if condition and also outside of my if condition. But I was not able to access it if it is using by a let. Why? Because let and constant both are the block level scopes. So this is one of the example how a block level scope work. For your understanding, let me make it more clear and let me create one more example. Okay. So if, okay, same thing I'll take 20 percentage 10 is equal to, sorry, here equal to operators I was checking. So we'll let you know how what is this double equal to means when we get into the operators topic. Okay, so name is equal to IQ array or else name VIQ. Okay, and I'll give like let likes is equal to coding. Okay, so next constant skills is equal to I'll give like full stack. So if you see here, I was declared three different variables with all the each one is different type of variable type. Like it is a var, it is a let, and it is constant. So now what we will do, we will try to access this out of my if condition. Console.log of name v, and it will be likes, and it will be skills. So can anybody tell me what will be the output of my line number 84? What is,
So variable will be executed.
tell me what is the output?
Array, sir.
So
Only array will be executed.
what is the output of this one?
It shows error, sir.
So okay, what is the output of this one?
Same, sir, error.
So now I hope you are clear. See which line it is creating, line number 77. Okay, so let us comment it out. We don't want this anymore. Likes is not defined. So it was creating error here. Why? Because my likes is declared within a if condition and it is now became a block level scope. So now I can't access it outside of my which one? If condition. If I comment it out and let's try and reload, I will get error in the next line. What is error? Same error. Skills is not defined. Okay. So now if you see skills also I was not able to access, but which is the only thing that I was able to access here? Variable type var. Okay, so that is why it is called as the global scope, and let and constant are called as the which type of scopes? Block level scopes. Clear? Now you people able to understand why let and constant are called as the block level scopes.
Okay.
Okay. So is it clear for everyone? I want answer from each and everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Cool. So now let's get into our next particular type of scope. What is the next type of scope?
Local scope.
Lexical scope, madam. Local we already did here. See, scope, global scope, local scope, and what we did. Lexical scope, sorry, block scope is done. Now let's go with the lexical scope. So it's not that much hard to understand what is meant by a lexical scope. So lexical scope is nothing but the inner function of the scope can access variable from outer function scope in nested functions. So that example, for example, before we have discussed different rooms, okay, but just imagine I wanted to check for a particular person within a Achiever Society campus. Okay, is it clear? So I may have different rooms, but all the rooms that we have comes under which particular compound? One single compound, nothing that is nothing but Achiever Society, right? So if I check from through Achiever Society perspective, I can have access to each and everyone. The Achiever Society, like what we say, Achiever Society, for example, who take as administrator, he have access for each and every batch person and each and every batch or trainer, right? Everyone it can access. Why? Because that all the batches and the classrooms that comes under one compound, that is under Achiever Society. So in the same way here, for example, whenever a scope is declared, that means a variable is declared within a function, that can be accessible within inside of the other functions if there is a nested function. So instead of letting confusion, let's jump into the example so that you can understand. So let me create a function. Outer, it is my outer function. Okay. So now if you see, I was declaring a variable here, like no need to use where. Why? Because where is a global scope, so it will be no use declaring wherever. We'll get the output. So that's why I changed it to let here. So outer variable, I was just using as where. Okay. So let me give like I'm I'm outer scope. Okay. So this is one of the variable I declared. So now inside of this, I created one more function called as inner function. Okay. So now here, okay, like let me give console dot log of outer variable. Okay. Okay. So now as it is a function, I need to call this function. So definitely I need to give like return keyword I'll use here. So what return will do is it will stop executing a function lines of code as soon as when you give a wherever you return, it will stop executing that. It will consider that is the ending of that particular function. Okay. So generally, if you call it, it will be we have the possibility of continuing our lines of code. But if you use a keyword of return and give the call the function, it immediately terminate the functions there itself. It will not allow it to go further. Got it? So that is the difference between declaring a function with return and calling a function with return keyword and without return keyword. So now my this function will terminate immediately it comes to this line. Okay. Now I need to call this main function. This whole function is outer function. So is anybody have any doubts for what we have written here? Understood everyone? First I created one function and declared a variable. Later let outer variable is the variable that I declared here. And then I created one more function inside this function with the name of inner function and try to access this variable here. So if I go and check in the output, if I reload, see, am I getting the lexical scope or not? Guys, are you able to understand what we did here?
Okay.
Is anybody have any doubt still?
No, sir.
So are you able to understand how lexical scope will work?
Yes, sir.
So let me try with const here. So am I getting the output or not? Even though if it is a constant also. Which one I was getting undefined? Okay, name v. No issues. So here if you see, so this is how my lexical scopes will work. So lexical scope is nothing but accessing my variable identifier within a function where I have a nested functions. Got it? Clear?
Yes, sir.
So is everyone clear with this? All the type of scopes that we discussed so far? Global, local, block, and lexical.
Yes.
Anybody have any doubts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So are you sure that I can go? We can go to the next topic, right?
Let's go. Will you read the variable inside function?
You can redeclare within a function. For example, see, let outer variable is equal to I given like this. Okay. So I can't redeclare the same value, right? But I can declare it within a function here. Local scope. You remember we discussed local scope. I may not able to declare within here, but I can declare here. Now, if you see what happens. So if you check the output, can anyone tell me what is the output will be?
I am out of scope
Why it will be out of scope to?
because for local scope is the higher priority than total scope.
Exactly. So my local scope will have the high priority than the outer scope. So here I was declaring outer variable is equal to I am outer scope. So I can use it if I wanted to use this anywhere here. But within that, I have one more function I created. So it will become a block level now. Okay, within that block level, I can use it. So here, this whole thing is one block and it is one block. So I can individually redeclare them. So as he mentioned, same thing. My local scope have the high priority than the outer scope. Inner scope have more priority than the outer scope. Okay, got it? Is it clear now?
In the same way, outside the outer function, when we declare the same variable, then it takes the inner function, right?
Yes. See, you
I
can't
mean outer
redeclare,
function.
but
No. Outside the outer function, when you declare the global scope, can you give?
okay. So now, no. Now, if you just try to conserve the same value here, you are asking, correct? I'll separate the code for you people so that you can easily understand. So this is where you are mentioning, not within the function, outside of the immediately outside of the function, right? Is it right or wrong? Not.
No.
You there? You are asking this type of execution only, right?
I think both are same, right?
So now tell me what will be the output here and what will be the output here.
Inside the function.
Anyone can give an answer. So here it
Sorry,
will
sir.
be,
First it takes I am out of scope. After that, I am out of scope to write.
I didn't get you. Which one will get outer scope to and which one will get outer scope? Line number 94, what is the output? Tell me.
line number
94, which I highlighted.
I am out of space.
So what is output I'll get in 97?
Variable. I am out of space.
Why can you just explain why I'll get two different type of outputs here? Because my once I execute my code will be executed from top to bottom. So already this variable is replaced with the new value. But why still I'll get in here in this line, if I try to execute, I'll get this value. Can you tell?
That is a black level scope, sir.
Okay, so what happening here exactly? I want the execution full thing. So as you already know, it's a block level scope only. So here I may overwriting my code in outer value here, but it will apply only to inside of this function. Once the execution come out of the function, so this outer will have the access to this one only. Why? Because it doesn't have access to elements which are there within this function. So for your example, I'll create like this. So now if you see what happened, outer 2 is not defined. Which line is this creating error? If you see here, why? Because so outer 2 is available only within this function. If you come out of this function, it will be not available. But why over outer variable is available within this function only? Because this function is there within this function. If I create a one more function within this, okay, like function inner func1. So now what happens? This will have the what we say privilege of accessing this particular variable. Now this function inner function one have the privilege of accessing this variable, anything. Why? Because it is inside. As I was telling, you can access them top to bottom, but you can't access them bottom to top. Understood how it will work? Guys, is it clear how the lexical scope will work? I'm asking you people, not I was not talking to the walls or something. Bloody answer,
Yes.
please. I was expecting answer from you people. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So still anybody have any doubts with the lexical scope?
No, sir.
Okay, cool. So that's what about today's topic. And tomorrow we'll be discussing about data types. Okay. So, just a minute. So we'll be discussing about data types. So basically there are two types of data types. Can anybody name them if you know?
Inbuilt and pre-default.
Pardon?
What you have unlimited?
Nice. So primitive data types are non-primitive data types. Okay. So under these primitive data types, we'll get like what all we'll get? Number, time, Boolean, and null, and undefined. There is a difference between undefined and non-defined. Okay, don't get confused. Okay, this comes under which one? Primitive or non-primitive data types?
Primitive data types.
Okay, so undefined and null is also okay, null already we given. So under non-primitive, what we'll get?
Array.
Then arrays, objects, and array of objects, etc. So you will try to know what is mean by this etc. when you trying to check the difference between primitive and non-primitive data types. Okay. So our tomorrow's topic will be data types. Clear? So tomorrow we'll be discussing about the data types and also operators. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is anybody have any doubts with the scopes that we discussed today?
So can you once again explain the lexical code?
Lexical, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me go with a pictographical example. Let me draw an example. Okay, cool. So just imagine it is my parent function. Parent function. Okay. So I have a child within that function. One more function I have within inside of it. Okay. So just imagine it is child function 1. Okay. So let me create one more function inside of that function. So it is the it is a third function. Okay. So child function 2. So is it clear so far what I am doing? One function, within that function I created one more function, and within that function I created one more function. So if I do it here as function 1, okay, the parent function, and within that parent function I was creating a function parent function 1. Understood? I created a child function within that, and within that child I was creating one more function child grandchild function 1. Okay, so here it is. It will be a grandchild function 2, which is nothing but this one. Okay, is it clear so far what we did?
Yes, sir.
ఓకే సో ఇక్కడ ఒక ఫంక్షన్ క్రియేట్ చేశాను, ఇన్సైడ్ దాని లోపల ఒక ఫంక్షన్ క్రియేట్ చేశాను, దాని లోపల ఇంకో ఫంక్షన్ క్రియేట్ చేశాను. నౌ సో it is that last function I have inside of this main function. If I create any variable here, like let name is equal to Manoj, okay, so I can access it anywhere within these functions, because these all are comes under which function? This main function only, right? For example, whatever I write within this childs, that all childs will be accessible to the parent or not. So now, for example, what I can do within the first function 1 child function also I can access console.log of name. I can access. Why? Because it is my function, whichever this function is inside of this function where let name is declared. In the same way, I can access the same variable within the grandchild also. Why? Tell me the reason. Why I was able to access here also within the grandchildren?
It comes from a back function.
Exactly. It also comes under the parent function only. For example, I created here, let L name is equal to Kumar. Okay. Now tell me this L name will be accessible to parent and grandchild too or not?
No, sir.
So for which one it will be accessible?
For grandchild too.
Exactly. So whatever the variable I created within this function, child function, it can be accessible to its child functions. Its child function is grandchild. So I can access this one in the downwards, nested downwards. So I can access here like console.log of L name. But I can't access this L name out of this function. So outside of this particular lines of code, I can't access this L name. Why? Because it is declared within a function and it's a let is a block level scope. I can access only to the child functions. Got it? For example, within the grandchild, if I declare variable L name 2 is equal to Chaudhary. So now tell me, this L name can be accessible to which functions? Whether it can be accessible to grandchild 2 or grandchild function 1 or function 1.
It will be not, it not accessible, sir.
So it can't be accessible to any other function apart from grandchild function 2 because it is declared within it. And if I create any function inside of it, that can access, but it can't outside can't be accessed. Simply to say, my functions variables can be accessible in the downward direction, right? Where is it? So it can be accessible in downward direction. I can access whatever I create, but I can't access in the upward direction. Is it understood now? అర్థమైందమ్మా ఇప్పుడు? So tomorrow we'll be discussing about data types and operators. Okay, try to check what is meant by primitive and what is meant by non-primitive data types, and also try to check what is meant by operators and what are the different types of operators that we have. Is it clear? Okay, guys. So that's what about today's session. Have a nice day. Thank you.